Hello and welcome to another episode of Aloe and Ace podcast. I am the Allosexual Skylar.
I'm the asexual Jessie.
Hey Jesse, how's it going?
Oh my gosh.
It has been over a month now.
I know, and I hate it.
January 21st, 2025 was the last episode. And
I hate that.
we have good reason.
We do. We do have good reason.
But first we should say this is episode 30.
Yes. 30. Can you believe it? Really though, 30.
And
That's crazy.
next month it'll be 1 year since we started the podcast.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. We should try to get a little fun event going or something. We should have a little ace party. I don't know.
Well, you should do that. I fully recommend that you set that up.
I'm being serious though.
So
That
am
would
I.
be so cool to celebrate a year doing the podcast. That's a big deal. And 30 episodes, I feel, is a big deal as well. We also, so while we're on this topic of celebrating, we have had 24,000 listens, and we have over 1,000 followers on Instagram now, and we have almost 1,000 followers on Spotify alone.
Yep.
I don't know how many are on other podcast platforms, but we do know for Spotify though. So that's cool. Yep. So much to celebrate.
Yeah, it's been amazing. We still have been receiving a lot of messages from people because people are finding this podcast every day. And it's also amazing because we get a lot of people who are like, I'm binging it right now. Like, they'll say, I found it yesterday and I've already listened to 10 episodes.
I know.
I'm like, that's 10 hours that you've been listening.
I mean, they might be listening on 2 times, but still.
Still 5 hours.
Still. I know I think that is blowing my mind a little bit to imagine that the podcast may be binge worthy. However, it doesn't surprise me very much in the fact that I know the struggle that's happening. And so finding content that's relatable when you are in a place of figuring things out, it's amazing.
I do think that also people like to listen to something rather than just read.
Yeah.
Which, again, there's a lot of good resources. Angela Chen's book, for instance, as well as Cody with Ace Advice has a couple books out now. So if reading books is your thing, that's great. And also, we recommend people support, them as well.
Yeah, support your other ACE content creators in whatever capacity that you're able to. There still isn't enough, though.
Yeah.
We must keep going.
And that's one of the reasons we've talked about this a few times on the podcast. It's one of the reasons why we started this podcast is because we, as a asexual, allosexual couple, couldn't find any good resources for someone that was in our situation in podcast form.
Yes, all I had was Dead Bedroom and other horrific things that I was reading on Reddit, pretty much, is kind of where I found myself when I first figured out that I was asexual.
Or even the other extreme with like Christianity podcasts saying, well, everyone should be demisexual.
Yeah.
And that if you're asexual, but your body responds, then it's a psychological issue. And I was like, no.
Yeah, So we're here. And, I was worried because it's been some time. I was like, I don't want people to think that something's wrong or that we've kind of just forgot about the podcast and don't care.
Or we broke up.
Yeah, something's wrong.
Yeah.
I was starting to get a little bit worried about it. But like Skylar said, we have continued to get so many messages over the last month and a half. And that's been really encouraging, which is another reason why I'm like, we need to get on there and we need to do an episode because we're still here and we're still so happy to be recording episodes.
Well, and it's not that we didn't have things to discuss. There's a different reason why it's been so long.
Right. So as our, excuse me, as our listeners know, we've been going through IVF and those treatments have been making me really sick. Well,
we should say, if you don't know what IVF is, it's in vitro fertilization. So basically, they'll take eggs from the mom, sperm from the dad, and then
or from a donor.
Yeah, and then scientifically put it together and then put it into the woman.
Right. And we decided to do this kind of like a little bit out of nowhere. It just felt right suddenly. And I had my tubes removed like 7 years ago or so. And so it was the only option in doing this.
There is no free way for the sperm to get to the egg.
No, there was not. And I think about how interesting it is if I still had my tubes, what kind of mental gymnastics I would have been doing to try to get pregnant with having sex.
Well, but I also feel like if you wouldn't have had your tubes removed, I probably would have gotten a vasectomy a long time ago.
You think so?
Yeah. There was really no reason for me to get one out of a precautionary thing because you didn't have tubes. So
yeah. So
that would have made it even more tricky.
I mean, we don't know for sure, right?
Yeah.
But it would have. I mean, I don't think it would have made it that. You can get that reversed.
It's not always 100%.
No, but you can get it reversed, and that is far less tricky than me going through IVF treatments. I just don't think that. I don't know if I would have been able to do it. I'll be honest. I don't know if I would have, knowing what I know now, I don't know if I would have been able to have sex frequently to try to get pregnant.
Well, especially with there being trauma around that experience.
Yeah, I also didn't realize I was having a lot of vaginal ultrasounds done during IVF. And I did have a couple of people ask me if that was making me feel any sort of way. And I feel like I've done a pretty good job at separating medical from all of that. Like, it's a medical thing, so it's not in my mind in that way. But I did have a bit of a breakdown when we were coming to the end of doing IVF, the treatment process. And I'm like, whoa, this has been a lot. Because there were vaginal ultrasounds at one point happening every day or every other day. And it's just a lot. It was a lot in general, obviously. So I have been really, really sick. Did you just look up the statistics of reversing a vasectomy?
I sure did.
I knew you were doing that. I knew it. I'm like, what's he doing over there?
I mean, I was curious.
Go ahead. Let's hear it.
So the AI overview says vasectomy reversal success rates, meaning sperm returning to the ejaculate range from 60 to 95%, with pregnancy rates typically varying from 30 to 70%. A lot of it is based on the surgeon's experience. The Mayo Clinic says the range is 30% to over 90%. So it kind of changes.
So what you're telling me is that it may have a much better possibility of pregnancy happening than IVF.
I don't know.
Yes.
What's the...
Come on now.
Well, let's look at the statistics for IVF success.
Well, I think that it's like 30% to like 60.
Let's see.
Let's see how wrong I am.
So women under 35 is 50 to 55% live birth rate. And then it goes down from there. So might be 6s.
Okay, but what's more complicated?
I don't know, because you're 100% success, baby.
I'm saying this because Skylar has been hesitant to get a vasectomy over the 7 years or whatever, whenever it's gotten brought up, just to have it done, right? And he's always been hesitant about it. So I feel like he's sitting here acting like, I ain't getting that shit reversed. I am not going to have something done down there again. Which is hilarious to me when we think about all of the many things.
I didn't say anything. She's having this two-way conversation with herself.
Oh, the conversation's happening.
Obviously, if we were talking about and wanting to have a child, I would do whatever was necessary.
Yes, you would.
So there.
Oh, anyway, so long story short, well, we're gonna have a baby. And I've been really, really, really sick every day, all day for a long time now.
And she
So
paid a lot of money to be sick.
I did. And so it's been really difficult to do a lot of things, and one of those things is filling up to giving you guys a good episode.
Yeah, she hasn't been very cheery and peppy.
I know.
So it would have been like a very kind of down in the dump sounding podcast episode, probably.
It might have been. Yeah, it might have been. So I'm happy to be here now. I am medicated with some nausea medication. And that's helping a lot. We can't just keep talking. We need to go over everything. Guys, we're not professionals.
Not professionals. Trigger warnings. Read the show notes. Start with episode 1, preferably.
Enthusiastic over there. No, really though, we're not professionals. We speak from experience and from observation, and we really care about how this podcast impacts folks. And you know what? The IVF stuff could be triggering.
Well, a lot of what we talked about can be triggering.
Yeah. So we love you and appreciate you, and please reach out. Please reach out. We always, whenever we get a message, it's like, oh, someone reached out.
I will say this. I think a lot of podcasts don't do trigger warnings, and that's fine. I think that if you're choosing to listen to something, especially around a specific topic, you're probably aware that there's going to be sensitive subjects discussed.
Yeah.
I will say that we are never going to be flippantly just nonchalant about something that could be triggering. And it's never our intention to cause someone to be triggered.
Right. Well, and of course, we've said it in every single episode, at the beginning of every single episode. And we need to continue doing that because people jump in wherever they want.
Yeah.
You know? So we respect the process of all of that, and we want it to be a safe space.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's been a month and a half, and I feel like this episode is just interesting because I think we're going to go over several different things that relate to the last month and a half of what we've seen and experienced. And I'm excited to talk about each of these things. It'll be good.
Yeah, for sure.
So I want to start by talking about Ace Sparks of the month and a half. But
educational moment.
I don't even know. Well, actually, no, it is. It is. The first one, there's only a couple. But the first one is just Ace coded from when I was a kid, and it had me laughing. I had a really good friend telling me that when we were kids, or reminding me about how when we were kids, preteens, my little group of friends would already be trying to be appealing to boys.
Well, and we're seeing this with our own daughters.
Yes, it's so fascinating. So I'm thinking, 10, 11, starting to have crushes on boys, etc. And my friend group, they were purposely like dressing up to be appealing as much as they could at that age. And so they would all be like putting glitter on their faces or whatever. And they turn to me, and I've drawn a mustache on my face with a Sharpie marker, and I'm wearing a cowboy hat. Like I literally had no interest in being appealing in that way at all. And it wasn't even like I was like, I better make myself unappealing. No, it was not even in my brain. It was like, this is going to be so funny. I love this so much. And they all look so cute and like girly and whatever. And then there's me, howdy, like doing something real silly or whatever. I hope people laugh is what my goal was.
I think you should bring that look back.
Should I?
With a Sharpie marker.
Yeah. It was a good look. But this wasn't even a one-time thing. Okay. If they were dressing up like, okay, if they wanted to dress up like Barbies or something, I don't know, whatever. I was never one to be opting in for something like that. I was always choosing something random. Another one, I would like wear a beret and act like a French painter named Pierre. I just did not care, everyone, at all. And I feel like that's ace coded. for me anyway. So I'd be interested to hear if others had experiences like that in their preteen years, teen years, I guess. Okay, so there's that story, which just cracks me up. Another story is we had someone reach out that's a listener that we've talked to a few times, and she was excited to tell me about an educational moment of the week that she felt would make me laugh. And it did. So basically, why do I feel like this is so graphic? She was saying that she wondered why a dog's penis was placed where it was at, like so far forward.
Well, they have a female dog, and the neighbor or someone has a male dog.
Yeah, I think that's how it was.
And she was looking. She's like, "Oh, I can't pet, this other dog's stomach because the penis is in the way." But why is it so far up? Because the female dog's genitals are both next to each other in the back.
Yeah.
And it seems like it would be easier for the dog to pee and not pee on its front legs
if it was further back. Yeah, so her partner came out and she was like, "Why do you think that is?" And her partner was like, "You're joking, right?" Like pretty much like that, like, "It's because they do other things with their penis too."
Well, he was like, "What is a penis for?"
Yeah, and so she was like, "Oh my gosh."
She's like, "Oh yeah, it's not just for peeing."
And I was like, I would have had the exact same thought. But funny enough, after I got off the phone with her, I don't even know how, Skylar said, "Well, yeah, why do you think it's called doggy style?" And I just looked at him and just paused. And I was just staring at him. And I just started laughing. And he was like, you didn't know that, did you? You didn't connect that." And I was like, no, I didn't. I didn't ever think about why it's called doggy style. So her educational moment became my educational moment in multiple ways.
Well, it's similar to Outlander when what's the main guy's name?
Jamie.
When Jamie
Come on, Skylar.
Jamie was going to have sex for the first time with Claire, and he flipped her around because he was used to watching the farm animals.
Oh, yes, I remember that.
Yeah, so his experience was the farm animals, and that's how they do it.
Well, it's just funny because I know how animals do it, but
you didn't know that's why it was called doggy style.
I just did not make the connection for the name. Yeah. I don't know why. So thank you, listener. You know who you are for that. And then it led to my own moment, which we laughed about.
And we do want to say, you can reach out to us. We love it when people reach out to us. And we have a phone number. You can text that number or you can call and leave a voicemail. We have been known to have phone calls with people. So if you would like to, it's a US-based area code 385-645-3651. And you can also email us at aloeandacepodcast@gmail.com. Or, Instagram is also a pretty popular place to message us.
Yes. And I'm not a phone call person at all. Maybe it's a millennial thing. I don't know, but I'm not. And we've gotten so much out of the phone calls that we've had with people.
Yeah.
It's been really nice, even though it's like, oh, I'm a little nervous about a phone call, but then they've always gone really well. And they haven't been short either.
No.
Like we usually talk for at least an hour with somebody. And it's just really, I think it's really genuine and special, honestly, even.
Yeah, and there's a couple that we hang out with now that lives near us.
Yeah, that listens to the podcast, and we're actually going to see them tomorrow.
Yeah.
So cool connections. Okay, so it's that time now to get into it, I think.
To get into the meat of the episode.
Yeah, and mainly what we're going to talk about, several things, is coming from conversations that have happened with our listeners over messages and or different questions that have been posed online that we've seen, but mainly from our listeners. So I think that'll be cool. We're going to keep things, we're not going to use names or anything, of course. We don't ever want anyone to feel like we're going to out them or something.
Well, and a lot of these things are typically we hear from multiple people
That's
around
true.
these same things. So it's never one person specific.
No. And yeah, we've seen, I'm thinking about the things we're going to talk about, and I can't think of any that have just been so specific to one situation. So that'll be good. So we're going to start with the feeling that you're not enough, obviously, is very common in these relationships and with asexuals in general. I think it's a huge battle. Something interesting that got brought up or has been brought up is that to look at it like if you're in a healthy relationship where things are really good and the only thing that is hard is a lack of sex, or because you have an asexual partner that's sex averse,
Which was
or
our
repulsed.
first 6 years was that way.
Was a lack of sex.
Yeah, or the only aside from, some things with like kid personalities or things with, them being bonus kids.
Yeah,
We don't like to call them step kids or step
No,
parents.
yeah, we don't ever say step.
So obviously, like being a bonus parent to a bonus child there are some tricky, navigation stuff there. But as far as our relationship that involves you and I together and our personalities and our relationship, the only difficult thing was around maybe a frequency of sex.
Right. Everything else was so good. And so the question is, I wonder if it's harder or easier, I guess, to feel like you're not enough. If you do feel like your partner is just amazing and offers so much, everything to the relationship, it makes me wonder if it then is a breeding ground for not feeling like enough even more. And then it also makes me think about folks that feel like they're not enough but are in more problematic relationships.
Yeah.
Somebody pointed out that, well, why should I feel like I'm not enough when they're not enough in several other ways? And I'm like, oof, well, that's interesting. I haven't thought of that. But the thing is we're still going around feeling like we're not enough, whether it's a problematic relationship in a bunch of ways or a healthy one.
Yeah.
And so what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that it's interesting because there are allosexual people who feel like they're not enough. But the interesting part of that is that what they feel they're not enough with is something that their partner is not asking for or not wanting. So,
what do you mean?
Like they might feel like they're not enough for you to sexually desire or enough to have sex with. But
I know, but don't you think the base of that is not taking their asexuality seriously? Their partner's asexuality seriously? They're not believing it?
No, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Well, I'm saying that their partner is not telling them that they're not enough. That's an internal thing. They feel like they're not enough.
I know, but that's only happening if they're not believing that their partner isn't sexually attracted to anybody.
Well, I understand that. I'm just saying that it's their own personal thing that they feel like they're not enough.
Yeah.
But their partner isn't telling them that they're not enough. It'd be one thing if you came to me and said, you're not sexually fulfilling my needs in a sexual way. But
I can't even imagine that.
But I'm trying my best to do everything that you're asking or wanting or quote unquote needing, but that's not good enough for you. Like our bodies just don't line up that way.
But you and I can both agree that is the rare case.
Yeah.
It's the other way around almost always where the asexual.
So that's what I'm saying is it's one thing to say you don't really support me in my job, or you don't support me around the house, or you don't do this or that, and you're not pulling your weight in that regard, and that someone can work on that because they can, versus saying I feel like I'm not good enough, but you're also not telling me that I'm not good enough. It's an internal thing that I just feel like I'm not good enough, but it's not valid.
Yeah.
It's not valid in a sense of someone's telling you. It's your own internal thing, thinking because someone isn't sexually desiring you or because someone isn't wanting to have sex with you, that they don't see you as good enough, but they're asexual and they don't have that desire to start with.
That's what I'm saying.
And no, I'm also
that
saying
seems so annoying to me.
And so it's not the same way in which the asexual partner can feel not good enough.
No, and I do think that there is a base level of not feeling enough, whether you're in a relationship or not even, because society has built that up, that you have to be doing this to have a healthy relationship.
Yeah, and that's one of the Instagram posts that I did recently, where I made a post that says sex doesn't define the health of a relationship. And we see that a lot in society with people saying, oh, if you're not having a lot of sex, then your relationship is not good, or there's
it's not even a lot
other
either.
issues.
It's like people put these interesting numbers on it. It's like if you're not having sex once a week. Yeah, once a week seems to be like the thing.
Yeah, like the average is once a week.
It feels like it's the minimum of what should be happening.
Well, and then because of society telling you that, especially as an allosexual, you then start having those expectations like, oh, well, if you love me and you are in this relationship with me and we're not in an open relationship, then once a week should be average. Like that means that I should be having sex once a week on average in a healthy relationship.
Yeah. So, the number stuff I think the number stuff creates so many problems.
Yeah.
That's what I feel like people are the most comfortable with asking that question.
Well, and I think it's interesting too is people don't tend to have conversations when they're dating to like be like, oh, what's a number that you like? People are just going into a relationship just thinking.
You know what though? That seems insane to me. And I had this conversation with my 16-year-old asexual son where I was talking about ego, and I told him about how interesting it is that someone would center their main or hinge their main relationship. You know, I'm saying main because if people have multiple relationships, right?
Yeah.
But if they're monogamous, okay, and they are hinging the relationship on sex, I just can't get over the fact of how many changes our body goes through all the time, every day. Every day there's a fluctuation of some sort, okay, even more so with women. So it just, even if you were on a date and you said, you know, how much, and maybe this is my asexuality talking, but I can't even imagine now. I'm like, I have no idea. Everything changes. 1 month it could be 3 times a week. And then the next month it could be once a week. I don't know. So even grasping any kind of normalcy there seems superficial to me. It seems like no matter what, people are going to typically put or say, I feel like women are going to say a higher number typically if they're dating somebody, unfortunately. And I feel like men might actually try to lower the number from what they would actually think. But maybe that's my own story. I don't know.
Well, and society also like perpetuates these issues around that where, you know, even growing up, there was a friend's brother who was married and his wife was pregnant, and she said something along the lines of like, oh, I don't want to have sex or whatever. And he's like, well, what's wrong with your mouth? And I actually, yesterday on Instagram, I saw an Instagram reel where
that's so gross to me.
The woman was like, oh, I just got back from the gynecologist and they said that I can't have sex for 6 weeks. And he said, yeah, what did your dentist say? And she was like, what? Oh.
I just feel like
and
that's
it's like,
so
But people talk about how, when people say, oh, it's just a joke, but there's some truth in a joke.
It's true.
And so if you're laughing at that kind of content, then there's a part of you that slightly agrees with that content.
Yeah.
And you would say, well, if you have a yeast infection, or if you have a UTI, or if you have this or that, well, you can help me in other ways. You have a hand, you have a mouth. There's other things that you
can help
do.
yourself. How about
And
that?
so it's just getting away from like those expectations of people's bodies and them having to do something for you.
Yeah, I think it's interesting just in general to think about placing expectations on someone else's body. That is so far out of my thinking. Like I can't connect with that thinking at all any longer.
Yeah, we've talked about that on a recent episode, just being
Yeah.
like, just because you're in a relationship doesn't grant you access to another person's body. They still have
No.
their autonomy to
Yeah.
say yes or no.
And it's interesting to think back to my past life, we could say, when I was LDS, Mormon, and my thought process around that. Like, I placed expectations on my own body for my partner. So I just doubled down with it.
Well, and there's still, and we've talked about this on other episodes too, where even in like the standard marriage and things like that, it's who is giving away this woman. It's not who's giving away this man.
Yeah.
So it's the woman is being given from the parents to a man, and then the woman is supposed to give herself to him.
Yeah, it's kind of fresh on our minds because we've been watching Love is Blind, which, I mean, always a shit show, of course. And there was some interesting talk about intimacy in the season of Love is Blind. There were certain connections where they ended up deciding to wait until they were married. There were connections where intimacy didn't happen at all, and they were worried about that.
Yeah.
And they may have not ended up together because of those reasons. I should say sexual intimacy, really, because I think that there were other intimacies going on. So I was really surprised that the one couple decided not to be sexually intimate. I think that's a big deal. There was a lot of religious undertone to this season of Love is Blind, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. We also watched Love Island, and there is a lot of talk about physical attraction and that what does your vagina say to it, though?
Yeah, do you get the fanny flutters?
Yeah. There's also been a couple characters or people, cast members on that show that have said, I just don't really, I'm a slow burner, or I just don't really think of that until I've got a connection. And so me and Skylar are always like, is that a little demi-coded there?
Yeah.
Are we seeing a little demi-codedness there? So, I mean, we don't want to sit here and like label people, right? It's just interesting to have those little moments kind of surface up from different shows, reality shows and whatnot.
Well, and while we're on the topic of, not feeling like you're enough, or especially in the allosexual realm where they're basing their partner's sexual attraction as them feeling like they're enough, or that it kind of goes back to the last episode where we talked about the roommate. And
yeah.
I think that there's this big thing out there, especially on like dead bedrooms or in the asexual community, where the allosexual person will label the relationship as a roommate if sex isn't happening, where everything else can be happening, but because sex isn't happening, it's, well, I don't want to feel like I'm a roommate. And the opposite can also be true, where the asexual partner, they can feel like they're in a roommate relationship because the allosexual partner is
pulling away
and not giving them every other aspect of the relationship because there is a lack of sex. So we've had a couple people bring that up and say, an asexual partner can feel that way too. It's not just the allosexual partner that can feel like they're in a roommate situation.
Yeah.
Because if the allosexual isn't doing everything that they can do to make the relationship better, and I'm not saying that an asexual partner has to have sex to make the relationship better. I'm saying that the allosexual partner could be putting more effort into connection, communication, and acts of service and kindness and all these other things that would make a relationship be a great relationship.
Yeah.
But because sex isn't happening, they're pulling away, they're becoming short.
It's almost like it's not worth it to do those other things since sex isn't happening.
So if there's no guarantee or if there's no hope that sex is going to happen, why would I want to build and sacrifice everything that I want to then give the asexual partner everything they would want?
Yeah. One thing I want to comment on is this whole roommate stuff, because I think that there can actually, I hate that it's such a negative thing, because I think that there's a lot to be positive to be said about a really great roommate, like a really great companion. Because there's a big difference between like companionship and like, I read this in my psychology class. It was like a companionship relationship, or a passion relationship. I can't remember the exact terms, but I don't want to downplay the amazing that can be with companionship, because ultimately that's what you end up needing and having when you get older.
Yeah.
Right? So you could be a kick-ass roommate, okay? Like, you could have the most amazing relationship that is companionship and could feel more like a roommate situation, but I don't like that it's used in a negative way. I understand that when we're talking about this, it is because you are being downgraded. Like, that's the way that it's being used.
And we're also not saying like most of the conversations that we're having, or the target audience of this podcast isn't those people who are wanting to have platonic relationships or QPRs.
Yeah.
So we're not going to necessarily like encourage and discuss like, oh yeah, platonic relationships are awesome and queer platonic relationships are great. They are great, but that's not the aim of the podcast. The aim of the podcast is to take a relationship that is wanting to be a relationship in like a romantic marriage, couple, long-term thing.
It's navigating a mixed orientation, really romantic relationship.
And because
that's what we know.
Yeah, that's what because even, we're not aiming to discuss even like aromantic really, or, stuff like that. We're more focused on people who have been in a romantic relationship, or someone who is seeking a romantic relationship as an asexual, and how to navigate making that work.
Yeah, I just wouldn't feel right trying to give advice on navigating that, because I don't feel like I experienced that. And I love my aromantic family as well, like, awesome. It would be really cool to have different guests on.
Well, I mean, Astat Advice, they are aromantic asexuals. So that a lot of their content is around aromanticism.
Yeah.
And so if that's something that you're looking for support, that would be a great place to do it.
Yeah.
But that's just not Jesse's experience. So
it's not. And I don't want to do it injustice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It means a lot to me. Mm-hmm. This whole community, the asexual and aromantic community, means a lot to me in general. So, and you know what? My son, who is asexual, he may very well be aromantic as well. So I think I've said that before, and we've talked about it, him and I. So I think that if he is, I think that that's going to be a really interesting learning experience.
Yeah, navigating what that looks like.
I'm so happy to have more conversations with him about that.
Yeah, so obviously we're going to give advice or information or things that can help within a relationship where people are trying to be more than a platonic relationship. So I will say that if you are an allosexual partner and you are wanting to avoid your relationship becoming a quote unquote roommate, then I would ask, what are you doing
Yep.
to make it not seem that way on your end?
Yep. And I mean, the same can be asked for both people involved. Really, that's what you really should be looking at.
Yeah.
What am I doing? What could I be doing? Right. And this, it's best if it's starting from a fresh place, if you can be looking at yourself in those ways. Right. So,
Well, and we talked about this on a phone call with a couple, and I heard this from a couples counselor, couples therapist a while back. He would say that when a couple would come in, he wouldn't let the partners complain about the other partner about something that they're not doing. He would always ask them, what are you doing to better the relationship? So I don't want to hear about what your partner is doing wrong. What are you doing right? Because I think that if you get in the mindset of only focusing on what your partner isn't doing, then it's going to keep a negative aspect in the relationship. I think that it's fine to have conversations about how people could possibly help out or improve.
well, and your boundaries need to be respected.
Yeah.
If the wrong thing that your partner is doing is breaking your boundaries, that's really important.
Yeah, we're not saying, or I'm not saying, don't stand up for your boundaries and anything like that. But if, for instance, you're upset that your partner never does the dishes, going to therapy and saying they never do the dishes and that just pisses me off and this and that, you're then going to get into a pissing match about what everyone is doing wrong, because we've talked about human nature is to preserve yourself, defend yourself. So if Jesse came to me and said, you know, I don't understand why you don't do this, and then my first reaction is going to find something that she doesn't do. And it's going to be like, well, you have a messy clothes pile next to the bed. How's that any different than me leaving my work backpack next to the back door? Like, why are you going to nitpick something of me when I can nitpick something of you? It's not going to cause any good environment. It's only going to cause us to nitpick each other. Whereas if we can come together and talk about in a healthy way these things, then it would be a lot better.
Well, and if you're coming from a place of what am I doing right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you know that clutter stresses your partner out, then the thoughtful thing for you to do would be to put your crap away.
Yeah.
Right? So hopefully you're doing that right. That's doing something right.
Yep.
I mean, thoughtfulness goes so far. Just be thoughtful of your partner.
Yeah, so if
and they're thoughtful of you, and it's just awesome.
Yeah, so if you're listening to your partner's boundaries and your asexual partner is telling you that they don't like this type of physical touch and they don't want to have sexual intercourse in any regard, then it would be thoughtful to honor that
and ask them
what
would you like?
What other types of touch would you enjoy? Can I give you a foot rub? Can I do this? Can I do that?
Yeah.
And if they ask you what kind of touch you want, well, you already know that their boundaries is no sexual touch. So don't say, well, you know what I want, but I can't have it.
Yeah. Oh, no, wouldn't like that comment.
But if a back rub would feel nice, then say a back rub and leave it at that. Say, yeah, it would be nice to have a back rub. That would feel great. Thank you.
Yeah. Speaking of touch, an interesting thought I had was that trusting your partner's touch goes in any relationship.
Yeah.
We've talked so much about it in an allo-ace relationship, but even if you have two allos together, your partner, the one that maybe has less of a libido or something, like, they should be able to trust that you're not always just getting after that.
Yeah.
Like, touch needs to just become what it is, and that's it. And then if it wants to move further, then people can decide for it to move further. But I don't think there should ever, unless you have an agreement, hey, if you slap my right ass cheek, then you're signaling to me or something. But it shouldn't ideally it shouldn't feel like if your partner's offering to give you a back rub that you then have pressure to have sex or something sexual to happen. It should just be what it is, because then once you have that trust, so much more intimacy can happen.
There also doesn't have to be a reason why someone doesn't want to do something. And they don't have to work towards enjoying it.
You mean like warming them up?
Well, meaning like you can be in an aloe relationship and someone doesn't like doing oral sex.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not this thing of like, well, I really feel like you
Try to
should
get them
work
to
on
like it?
you should work on enjoying it. No, I don't want to do it. So that's the end of that. Like
Accepting it for what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just feel like it's really vulnerable. And it's unfortunate that there's a lot of that goes on, where it's like, maybe you could come around to liking my penis in your mouth.
I will say there is a little bit of an asterisk to that, but it doesn't really apply to this podcast. But
okay, what's that?
For instance, if a partner is just wanting to get their own and not work at making both people get their own, then there's some work that can be done in that regard.
Okay, explain more.
For instance, if a woman needs more foreplay or she needs more particular stimulation or a toy or something, then the guy saying, well, I don't want to do that. And he just wants to get he just wants to have his orgasm in a minute.
Which we know is a problem.
And he doesn't want to do 20 minutes of warming up.
Yeah.
Then that is not the same thing and being like, well, I don't want to do that, so you can't make me do that, and you should just respect my boundaries. Like, there's a level of in that case that I can see where it's,
well,
you can be
they can just warm themselves up and forget you. I don't need anyone else to warm me. I'll warm myself up.
I will say, especially when there aren't boundaries like there are in someone who is sex averse repulse.
Yeah.
Because me being like, well, you should just, warm up to it. No, that's not.
Oh no, that's not okay.
No. But in a aloe relationship where you're both agreeing and wanting to have sex, and then both partners should be, I'm not saying that they should do something that they're not comfortable with. There's a difference between being uncomfortable and that crossing a line versus just being lazy or not wanting to be a supporting partner in that regard.
Supporting, thoughtful partner in bed. Yep. Yes, I do think that there's a lot of issues around that in regular relationships. Okay, so wow, we've only gotten through a few things, but I think that's great. I think that says a lot. The next thing we have is that if your actions are matching your words, then if your partner's actions are matching the words that they're using, then you should try your very best to trust what you're experiencing with them.
Yeah, we've had, so obviously asexual people, which, yes, I'm going to speak for you.
Oh, here we go.
In Reddit and in my own relationship, asexual people are saying it sucks that people don't want to be in a relationship with us because we won't have sex, and we just want to be loved just like everybody else. And I want my partner to just respect my boundaries. And
obviously, you're speaking for asexuals. You're speaking of asexuals who are sex averse, etc.
I think it's across the board though, because an asexual person wants to be accepted for who they are, right? And whatever their boundaries are.
Right.
And we've agreed that they are typically going to be the person who has the most boundaries.
Yeah.
In the relationship.
Typically, yes.
Yeah. So they're saying, I want my partner to respect my boundaries. So if that means that I'm sex averse, then don't initiate sex. If I'm sex indifferent or sex favorable, then let me lead, right? Typically, or we will set up the kind of the whatever to know who or how you can initiate.
Yeah.
And I want to be treated like I'm worthy of being loved and worthy to be in a relationship. And I just want someone to accept me for who I am. What happens, though, or what can happen, is that I can come to Jesse and say, I love you for exactly who you are. I want to know what your boundaries are and I want to accept them. And I'm not going to pressure you and I'm not going to do anything that's going to make you uncomfortable. And I 100% want to be in this relationship and I love you and I can't imagine being with anyone else. To have her say, I don't believe you. Because you're a very sexual person, you're allosexual. So why would you choose to be with me with the thought that you could possibly never have sex again? That doesn't make sense.
Now, if this is a new conversation and your partner saying this to you, your allo partner saying this to you, I could see why you would be like, I'm skeptical.
Yeah.
Because there hasn't been any time. There hasn't been any action to match the words.
Yeah.
I do think it's best to be optimistically skeptical.
Trust but verify.
Yeah. It's hard though, it's hard. But once some time has passed though, if your partner's actions are matching what they're saying, I think if you're still struggling, that's a very internal struggle that needs to be worked through.
Because there are allosexual people out there who really do love their asexual partner fully for who they are, and all they want is to be in the healthiest, best relationship that they can be, which is honoring the boundaries that are set. And to have the partner say, I don't believe you, or I don't know if that I can, do that is hard. And obviously, I mean, we've talked about this throughout the last 29 episodes. There has been, I don't even know, a dozen, more than 12 times that Jesse has broken down and cried and said, I don't know why you're with me, or you would be better with someone else.
It's more than a dozen. It's more than, over the last, going on 2 years, it's been more than a dozen, I'm sure. It doesn't happen hardly at all now.
Yeah.
But the first
year,
6 to 9 months, oh my gosh.
It was a lot.
That's the thing that I worry about, sort of, is that
people aren't going to give enough time.
Well, no, you guys hear us and we're great. Like, we're talking about all of this stuff in a great way. But I was a wreck. I was a total wreck. By the time we started recording the podcast, I was in a much better place, but I was still really struggling, as you can hear in those first several episodes.
Yeah, I mean, it was 8 months from when you fully came out to us doing our first episode, pretty much.
Yeah. So I just want to put a little bit of focus and attention on the fact that if you've recently come out as asexual, please be kind to yourself. It is okay that you are up and down and everywhere, because everything in your brain might feel like it's falling apart and that everything is ruined or something. And that's totally normal to have that happening. You are literally relearning yourself in the way that you should have been able to from the jump. And that's a tricky thing to be going through.
Yeah. And we've told people before as well, like, this is a marathon, not a sprint. So a lot of people, when it clicks for them, when the asexuality part clicks, they get really eager and wanting to figure themselves out. And all of a sudden it's this bombshell that's been dropped in the relationship. And it almost seems like sometimes there can be a short window of acceptance that's hoped for, versus it might take a year to work everything out.
Mm-hmm. It might take longer than that. I think that the thing that's key is progress. I think as long as progress is being made, even if it's little, then I think that that's what matters.
Yeah, and I think there needs to be some level of understanding on both sides where, for instance, I think sometimes the asexual partner might feel like their partner is going to just fully accept it and be like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, wow, I'm so glad that you figured that out. That's amazing.
I don't think that happens that often, though.
No, I'm saying that might be what they're hoping for, because I think the idea is like, everyone's like, yeah, everyone should be themselves and know who they are. And everyone should be happy for people who figure that out and that know themselves and are authentic. And so the initial response is, I hope my partner is happy that I have figured myself out and that I'm living my authentic life.
I mean, you could be hopeful all you want, but
and that's typically not the response that's going to happen.
No, and I think that there are a ton of deep-rooted fears if you are coming out to your partner as asexual. Yeah. I think that it's hard to be hopeful and look at the best outcome possible. Like, that does not...
And obviously, I don't think that the reaction I had is a typical reaction.
No, it wasn't. And that's why it's, the thing is people, we've said this so many times, but we'll say it again. People have had a hard time believing what Skylar says. And that's hard when they don't, because obviously I'm experiencing it. I'm like, oh, he does. He really, he talks the talk and walks the walk. Is that what they say? But the thing is I understand why people are like, yeah, freaking right.
Yeah.
Are you out of your mind? You are happy to be signing up for a sexless marriage? You're happy to be literally fathering the child of your asexual wife? Like, you are really cementing this in, And like, I feel like we have been so conditioned to think that that's absolutely crazy. So I understand why it's not believable. But, after 30 episodes, I don't know.
And it's not like we're getting paid money to do this podcast. So it's not like I'm having to keep up a facade.
Yeah.
For like financial gain.
No, but I mean,
maybe I'm just too far into it now that it's like I have to prove that it can work.
I mean, you would look like an interesting person is what I'll say. It's my favorite thing to say is that's interesting.
That's interesting that you would choose to do that.
If you suddenly very much changed your way of thinking, I'd be like, oh, so it was never real. Okay, that's cute.
Yeah, and what's the percentage that you have in your head of that being the case?
0.2%.
Oh, good.
I was
like, if you say 5%, then this is going to become a longer episode.
I wanted to say 0, but that feels stupid. Because the thing is like,
nobody could be 0%.
No, I don't think that's realistic. I think even saying 0.25% feels a little unrealistic, but I in my heart of hearts, I feel like it's 0. But then, like, logically, I'm like, let's leave a sliver.
But what if people are like, well, but you guys could just be like such great friends, and you could
Well,
just
people do say that. People
and
have said
you
that.
guys would just have the most amazing platonic roommate relationship ever.
Yeah.
Or you guys could just be polyamorous and just.
Here's the thing. Let's check in on this, okay? If Skylar came to me at this point,
Is this the open cupped hands conversation?
Yes, to a degree. If Skylar came to me and said, okay, we'll go 2 different paths here. If Skylar came to me and said
It's
that
like-
he wanted to go have sex with other people,
I come to you and I'm like, hey, buddy.
oh my gosh, I would. Nope. Nope. That'd be bad. If he came to me and said that he wanted to have sex outside of our marriage because he felt like that needed to happen, I'm not going to lie. I would not sleep in the same room with him anymore. And I think that's because I feel like I'm giving my entire intimate self as much as I possibly can to him. And it just feels like, and this may be a self thing to work on, but it feels like it's being trampled on if, like,
Well, I also want to say real quick that that's Jesse's experience. That doesn't mean that has to be everyone's experience, because there are asexual people or people who don't care.
No, and that's fine. No, this is totally my experience. This is my story.
Yeah, this doesn't mean that every asexual partner should feel this way.
I'm not putting this on everyone. Yeah. This is my reaction.
This is a Jesse reaction.
Yes. I just feel I wouldn't feel part of me wouldn't feel safe anymore to be laying next to you naked and stuff. I take it so seriously that you're the only person that I am intimate with in any of those ways, that it feels like it would hurt too much.
That's where you would feel the not good enough.
I think it would be a glaring light on that. And so what's interesting is, like,
I mean, I think it's interesting or good that you recognize that could possibly be a you thing that you would need to work on. I'm not saying that you have to, but I think you need to understand, even if after you self-reflect, even if it stays the same, it's maybe having a full understanding, a validating understanding to yourself of why you feel that way, and not a fear-based.
I think part of me feels bad for the reasoning, like I shouldn't feel this way. And here's the thing: like, I'd like to think that I am a sex-averse / repulsed asexual, and it typically doesn't come down to me feeling like it's gross.
Yeah.
Like, unless I strip it down and really start thinking about bodies, okay? Yeah. And when I strip it down and start thinking about bodies, I do start to get grossed out a little bit. And so I think part of me, and I know showers exist, but part of me feels like if I'm laying and cuddling with you naked, then that's like a really intimate body thing happening. And then so the thought of you getting sweaty naked with somebody else, like, it grosses me out. And I have to make sure I say, this isn't like I'm slut shaming someone.
Yeah.
I think that that's great if you want to go and explore in all the ways you want to, safely and consensually. But for me and my boundaries and where I might have a hard time is I literally think about their, like, skin cells on me. And I don't have intimate relationships with them. I have intimate relationship with you, and I feel like it gets, like, mixed. I don't know.
Well, I don't think that it's slut shaming at all, because there are people who don't like kissing, and they just don't like kissing, and they don't have to have a reason why they don't like kissing.
Yeah.
So it's not slut shaming to be like, oh, well, I hate that you make out so much. No, I don't like kissing, and I don't have to have any explanation of why I don't like kissing.
Yeah, I think in my own relationship that is intimate, it just feels like it would be too much. So what's interesting though is like I don't think I could just cut ties with Skylar. Like I wouldn't want to sleep in bed with him, I don't think, anymore, and be intimate in the ways that I am intimate. But I think I would still want to raise our kids together and raise our baby together. I just don't think that I would have a romantic relationship with him any longer if that's what he chose to do. So why are you looking at me like that?
I don't think you could resist not having this romantic guy in your
Oh
life.
my gosh, gross, actually.
You would love a hug from me.
Okay, but you know what you're saying right now.
I'm not.
Is you wouldn't want to respect your own boundaries because I'm just so irresistible romantically.
I am totally joking.
Yeah, you better be. So if Skylar came home with that, I feel like that's right now, currently, that's where I would feel, what I would feel like. It would be really hard because he is the only person that I do anything romantic like that with. And there is so much trust that has built up with touch, etc., in this relationship.
Yep.
If he came to me and said, you know, that person that we met at whoever's house last week, I just have this feeling or something. Like if it was a more serious feeling going on, I feel like
I almost feel like
I'd be like
you would
curious.
I almost feel like you would feel it too. It wouldn't just be me coming to you.
Yeah, you and I typically have similar feelings on people, like just in general.
And there's no way that we wouldn't meet the same person.
Yeah, I can't see that happening.
Because we're with each other all the time. So
right. So it would be like a social situation
where you would be like, hey, that person, I got a vibe from them. And I'm like, yeah, so did I. It's kind of weird.
So I think Skylar and I have this understanding. Like, I think it's incredibly unlikely, but I don't think I could deny such a strong feeling, a connection with somebody. I don't think it would be right for me to say, ignore it. She is evil. No fucking way. Like, I think I'd be like, oh, okay. Well, let's talk about this.
Now, there is an asterisk to that as well.
Which is what?
That most people are in relationships, or rather, most people, when they are in a relationship, is bound to meet someone that they hit it off with.
That's not the same. That's not what we're talking about.
I know. And what I'm saying is that doesn't mean that they have to then pursue it.
No.
So just because we have an interesting vibe with someone doesn't mean that something has to happen.
No,
either.
I'm talking like some
cosmic.
Yes, like a cosmic crazy situation that you could hit it off with people all the live long day, okay? You could chill and have so much fun hanging out with somebody. I'm talking about something that feels very, very, very different.
Like some second soulmate situation.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Not
like
to get too cringy or cheesy here, but
like something where you're like, we've known each other in past lives and
yes,
whatever.
and I think we can respect that because we feel like we've experienced that.
Yeah.
So I feel like it would be a huge disservice to both of us to like force you to not feel those things, which is impossible. You're going to feel the way that you're going to feel, right? So,
which me joking about how you wouldn't be able to resist not having a romantic relationship. No, it's actually the other way around.
You wouldn't be able to.
I wouldn't be able. Why?
You're damn right.
I'm not willing to compromise all the love and connection and intimacy that we have just so I can have sex.
You're not willing to risk all of that.
No.
I mean, because it could be fine. Maybe I could have a great reaction. I don't know. My inclination is that it wouldn't be like that. So it really does come down to, are you willing to risk all of the good that is in this relationship for meaningless sex? Does that mean to say meaningless?
You don't know what it would mean. I'm just kidding. I don't know. It's
casual sex.
It's not something.
Casual sex? That's what I should say. Casual sex.
I mean, I think
maybe the casual sex would be worth it for some.
I think that people who typically engage in ethical non-monogamy a lot of people be like, oh, well, it means nothing, whatever. No, I think that it's anytime you're having that kind of closeness, you're bound to, especially if you don't have a rule, like you can't have that with the same person more than once, you're bound to have some kind of connection form.
Yeah.
So it would never be not meaningful. There would be some relationship meaningful aspect of it, but I'm not willing to give up what I have with you to have less of a connection potentially with someone else and give up the connection I have with you.
Yeah. And
outside of there being this lightning strike chance that we're both going to meet this cosmic person together and want to be in a relationship with them.
That sounds so
together.
That sounds so hippie, like
commune.
I feel like we've had so many experiences thus far that I can't be like, yeah, right. No, I think it's important to.
You're like, a throuple could happen, possibly in some kind of lightning strike.
I'm giving that an eighth of a percentage. Okay, like
yeah,
that's the thing.
We're not on an app looking for a throuple.
No, let's make that clear.
We're not even.
Who wants a baby mama?
We're not even looking for a throuple, period. It's not even in our radar. So
no, it's not.
But we've just learned to never say never.
Yeah, I mean, with a lot of things. With some things, that's not true. But
and we have a 15-passenger van, so it wouldn't be an issue.
Oh gosh, wow. We do have a few more things, but I think I want to save them for another episode.
Okay.
I know.
I don't even know what to title this episode. I mean, people are going to see the title ahead of us because we don't even know what the title is right now.
I know. It's been a good one though. I feel like we've really thoroughly talked about several things, and we have several more things that we can talk about. Yeah. And I hate to make people wait, but I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we would love to have people reach out to us, like we said. And, if you have any funny asexual moments that you want to share with us, or if you have anything that you would like for us to possibly discuss on the podcast, we're always open to ideas.
Yes.
We give lots of people, I think, conversation points because these are conversations that we have in our own relationship. But hey, maybe there's something. Oh, I do know that there is something, and that will be probably for a future one.
Oh, there you go.
So there we go.
Already. Anyway, we appreciate you listening. We're sorry it's been a bit. Know that we have been thinking about all of you a lot over the last month and a half, and it has made me sad not to be on here talking through things because we care so much. So please reach out, give us a hello, some questions, whatever.
Yeah,
we'd love to hear from you,
and we love you guys.
We do. Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.